What's going on, folks? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the debut album of Curve, Till the Wheels Fall Off. Now, this is basically an album rooted in crunk core. It's very similar to Broken Side, The Millionaires, Blood on the Dance Floor, that type stuff, a few of those fellows. And it came out in early 2009, had the scene culture going pretty rave and that type stuff. I definitely feel like I wanted to check this out just because as much as I was a fan of like Broken Side style and those type folks, I wanted to see what other stuff from next door neighbors of that genre to kind of see what else this genre has to do with. So the unfortunate thing about trying to review Curve is he's so low key that the fact of the matter is there's just not an overabundance of information about him really circulating around the internet. For the most part, the biography that I pulled up about him, he doesn't have a Wikipedia article about him, but the only biography I really got just has like about 3 or 4 sentences that just says he recorded equipment from his bedroom with the $60 in his girlfriend's laptop. So that's really about the extent of the information about Curve, even all these years later. I know he's a pretty sensible crunkcore musician, and some of his most popular songs do have like 150,000, 300,000 hits, but I don't think he's anywhere near charting. And I would probably put him in a valve, probably like 2 or 3 shades beneath Broken Side, who are kind of pretty low key also. I mean, Blood on the Dance Floor, Broken Side are kind of like folks who would sell maybe like 6,000, 8,000 copies first week. So I almost imagine Curve to be someone who might sell like 800 or 1,200 or 2,500, something like that. So that's kind of the concept. But this album is still worth checking out. I don't know if you can get it on CD, and I'm not really sure the full extent of the prospect of how far this album went, but it does have some pretty like crazy club joints on here. And by crazy, I definitely mean that in a high extent of the word. Because if you like Broken Side and you like that screamo stuff, like I really feel like Curve needs Ritalin or something, because he's by himself and he has a great screamo voice. He screams a lot, and in a lot of cases, that's kind of one of my bigger complaints about this album, is just the fact that it's so unorthodox with its arrangements in terms of verses, verse structure, bridges, hooks, and that type of stuff. It just really feels like when he feels like screaming, he screams and that type of stuff. So it just, I mean, I do like the screaming and I do like the energy of what I get on here, but it's pretty sporadic, and that's kind of the problem with it. But it has a lot of shrieko, screamo kind of energy, and the energy is really off the meter. Like if you like Broken Side, he turns it up like 3 or 4 notches higher than that, and that's just kind of the thing. But I'm not really sure if there's a single. It doesn't really appear like there is, but there are a number of songs that do kind of have some popularity, like songs like Yeah, I'm the Sex, Boys Pop the Bottles, Screaming Mayday. Some of those are some of the ones. I'll go ahead and tell you about the songs that I recommend, because there are 13 songs on here, and I will list the ones out of 13 that I recommend. So I wound up liking 6 songs, and I'll just talk about them that way, just so you kind of get a heads up of what to expect from this project. So the 6 songs I recommend would be Boys Pop the Bottles, Yeah, I'm the Sex, Freakin' Freak, Stick That in Your Juice Box, Screaming Mayday, and Crunk Kizzle Romance. Now, I really feel like 2 of the best songs on here would be Freakin' Freak and which one is it? Boys Pop the Bottles. Those have the 2 most immediate kind of club bop and house party bop type feels towards them, especially Freakin' Freak. That one just has the most arranged kind of club energy. I just feel like that had the best beat arrangement. It's probably the closest one to the most polish on here that I saw. I mean, once again, he's a pretty shrieko kind of person, so he shrieks in every single one of these, and it has some great energy, but that really felt like it was on Broken Side level in terms of polish. I feel like Screaming Mayday is one that has like the most single like polish. This is one that kind of feels like it's out of a Pokemon video game or some sort of emo video game, something like that, an anime game. And really felt pretty carved out as far as trying to be a single. Definitely like that. Yeah, I'm the Sex has some great energy. This one really is where the screaming goes complete crazy. It has the most riveting energy on here. It's definitely an infectious song. And like I feel like Crunk Kizzle Romance is kind of, this one kind of calms it down a bit, but I still kind of like the kind of edge to it in terms of like what it was trying to offer, because it's not quite as crazy. But considering that it's just talking about a crunk romance, that type things, I kind of like the vibes that it was giving off from that. Just a little bit toned down, but still kind of could be a club bop, but maybe one that has ladies more in mind. And Stick That in Your Juice Box is like pretty much like a crunk type Lil Jon type song, just with the screaming in there. So that's kind of a good one. Like if you replace Lil Jon's "What Ho" with like just some screaming, that's kind of what you get. And Stick That in Your Juice Box. It really has a lot of charm towards it. So yeah, I think that about covers it out of the 6 songs I recommend. Yeah, so that's basically like the concept. I mean, there are some good beats on here, but my biggest complaint about this project is just the fact that the arrangements of these songs are just so sporadic. I mean, it's just hard to get into. Like, I figured upon the title, Crunka Motherfuckalicious would have been like a great song to go crazy to, and it does have some energy to it, but it's just way too sporadic and random for me. And Rocket Ship to the Moon, at least on Spotify, has the most plays on it, but I couldn't get into that one. And it's the same thing with Cotton Headed, Ninny Muggins. I mean, some of these, like, I kind of figured. I kind of figured that the craziness of these was going to be there just because it is Crunkcore and he's a lot more low key. But the problem that I was having with it is it's yeah, it's simply way too random. Like it doesn't go with like the verse chorus type format. And if you include like the verses where you'd get the rapping and then the screaming and then the ad libs and all that, you can't tell the ad libs from the bridge, and you can't tell the bridge from the chorus, and you can't tell the verses from the chorus either. In a lot of cases, it just really is like a random just session for just plain screaming, and that kind of gets, it's not so much it gets tiresome, but it gets a lot to deal with. I mean, the 6 songs that I picked out are probably the most polished and arranged ones, where the energy is infectious and it's some vivid party starters for getting turned up, and it's an extra kind of next door neighbor to stuff like Broken Side, The Millionaires, Blood on the Dance Floor, and some of those folks. But that's about the most sane of the craziness. Because if you're just looking for a plain carnivorous, go crazy, if you're just looking for a carnivorous, crazy, get destructive kind of atmosphere, there's plenty of stuff for that. But it's more kind of akin to crazy more so than like typical song structure, and it kind of is borderline to the point where you're just basically waving your arms like crazy and just not, there's just no sensibility towards it whatsoever. So that's kind of the thing. But it is, I mean, obviously the energy is off the meter and there is some good stuff if you can sift through it. But I just kind of felt like I would do the honors of being the first to kind of sift through this and kind of pick out some songs if you're looking for like some stuff for a playlist, something to kind of get turned up to and kind of have a more organized Friday or Saturday night, or at least try to put like some polished, or put some sort of organization towards this sort of stuff to kind of figure out what could be like the true party stars and that type of stuff. That's what you do. So yeah, there are some club moments, there are some house party moments, there are some weekend bounce and car craziness kind of moments and backyard kind of moments, but this is kind of a consolidation of that, so you at least have an easier time if you are having difficulty. So me liking 6 out of 13. I'm going to give this album a 4.75 out of 10 just because a lot of this was pretty tough to consolidate. It is quality, but I think the craziness kind of outweighs the quality in this project. If you're just looking for something to completely get destructive to, this is your album, but in terms of quality, it's kind of slacking. Or, well, not in terms of like, I'm trying to find another word besides organized, but just something that's kind of more like kind of, yeah, I can't think of my vocabulary is just not with me at the moment in terms of trying to think of something besides organized, but it's just not very organized whatsoever. I mean, at least with Broken Side, like when you think of the album I'm Not a Fan but the Kids Like It from 2009, or Will Never Die from 2010, at least those albums had some consolidation to them, and you could pick out the ones even when they were at their craziness, it still had a sense of organization. But this album does not have that. This is like purely off the riddle end, just completely forgot your medication type vibe and that sort of thing. So just understand that. But the social score I will give like a 6.5 out of 10, because it does have some crazier moments, and if you can deal with the fact that the song structure is kind of very unorganized, you may be able to find some other gems. 6.5 because there are multiple songs for going out and that type of stuff. But it's just kind of disarrayed. So in terms of the future, I mean, apparently Dot Dot Curve has done a lot of stuff. I mean, he has several projects out there and that type of stuff. This is just his first one. I don't know how many of these. I don't know if I'll review every last one, but I do want to get more into this guy just to see what he's about. And I really would like to hope I can find this album on CD just to really listen to it a lot more. Hopefully it's available, even if it only sold like 2,000 copies or something like that. It's still worth the investment if you can deal with the kind of craziness. So